Alright guys, here we are in Hogwarts Legacy testing out 6 times frame gen and dynamic frame generation. So not only will we go to 6 times, but we will also be doing 5 times, and we'll do the dynamic and see how Hogwarts Legacy kind of stacks up. Now, I've already played just naturally for about 20-30 minutes, just playing through the game just normally. I played at quality, DLSS, at my original settings that I've always had, but we were playing at the new 6 times frame generation. This is how it looks, streamline underscore. So that's how you know it's working. So you actually have it in game with Hogwarts Legacy. I still did do the override on the NVIDIA app, but I was able to see that it was there in the game. So it's actually functioning in the game. We're targeting a frame rate of 240. We have NVIDIA Reflex on. You know, I'm gonna give it a little. Actually, no. We'll keep it on NVIDIA Reflex on. Like I said, DLSS quality, and just let's take a look at a couple of my settings. No ray reconstruction. Mostly everything on high and or ultra. Everything's on ultra except for like 3 settings. And this is important because this is the first title with ray tracing. Ray tracing with 6 times frame gen is the first one I've tested. Obviously, we've got Cyberpunk as well. We'll get into that a little bit later. But I figured I'd try Hogwarts Legacy since it's a little bit different than Cyberpunk, and it's a newer game. But here we are in Hogsmeade. So I was able to get all the way through Hogsmeade right away. Yeah, this is not good. This is not good. Yeah, we have the frame gen at 6 times. You can see that in the corner on our overlay. So it is activated. We are hitting over 250 FPS. So it's easily getting us over that 240 mark. Even when I'm running around, you know, we drop a little bit, but I mean, it's 240, and the latency, while it's approaching 60, and I can definitely feel it in this game. This game's a little sluggish. But yeah, you immediately can see all of the graininess, all of the AI frames trying to piece together the game. Playing like this was not fun, guys. Like, honestly, like, my eyes kind of hurt a little bit. I'm not even gonna lie. Just all the grainness and how it's just not smooth. It's not like, to control the character and actually play is not bad, you know, but everything's so soft, and this is at quality. Now we'll go ahead and try and turn on native. DLAA is way too intensive for this game. I believe my native DLAA frames in this area would probably hit somewhere maybe 30, so we're not going to do that with the 5070 Ti and see how this fares. So I've only ran through it once, but as you can see already, it's super grainy. I hope you guys are watching on maybe like a 4K monitor or something, at least a larger screen. It's undeniable. And this is a game, it's unfortunate because this is a game that could really utilize the 6 times frame gen, but I believe like 4 times frame gen, it was getting quite blurry, and I don't think I didn't enjoy the frame gen before this six times upgrade or update. I just wanted to play without frame gen and maybe some performance DLSS, which I'll put on performance DLSS, but I tried it, and spoiler alert, it's you think this is rough, then turn on performance. But yeah, I mean, it's just too grainy. It's too much. There's ghosting everywhere, and what's even worse than the ghosting is the shimmering. This game obviously has a lot of, you know, magic and, you know, all these, you know, crazy effects with all these colors. You know, it really suffers when the AI frames, you know, ruin the experience with all the extra artifacts that are flying through the air while you're trying to walk around. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie, it genuinely hurts my eyes. But especially when we're in the forest, when there's all these trees. In this area, it's not too bad with just the buildings around. But when you're turning and, you know, you're looking at the fabric on some of the characters, it just distorts. The picture kind of falls apart a little bit. And then when you stop moving, I mean, it looks good. And that's what NVIDIA does. Whenever NVIDIA has their showcase, you always notice when they're about to release a new update to DLSS or FrameGen, they always do something where it's really slow, no motion, no movement. They never turn the camera this fast. They're always turning the camera like this. And even there, all around the character, I see this like it's just a distorted effect. Flickering, shimmering everywhere. I'm not too excited to do dynamic FrameGen, but we'll give 5x a try. Hopefully that can be an improvement. Alright, really quick before we head to 5x, I did want to show you guys the run to Hogsmeade, because I think that shows an even greater example of where 6x FrameGen is really going to struggle. Especially in games with, I think it really has to do with the frame generation. I'm going to do some testing with some other games. I think once you implement, you know, some more taxing and more complicated things like ray tracing, it kind of messes with the frame generation. It makes it very difficult for it to generate all these frames. But the run to Hogsmeade was really rough. I mean, on the system, it moved fine. You know, I could, you know, move the character. The latency wasn't awful. It never really eclipsed over 65, I believe. I didn't really notice any issues with controlling the character input latency, but the visuals just broke down. You know, trees were everywhere. Trees were flickering and shimmering. You'll see here. I'll probably have it up on the screen. It just doesn't work. It really doesn't work. You can't just flip on six times frame gen and just think you're going to have a good time with a good picture, you know, it moving very well. So in 6 times frame gen, the latency is not really the issue here. It's really the image quality. The image quality breaks down in this game, you know, exceptionally more than it does in any of the other titles I've tried so far. So you can just take a look for yourself, and you know, we'll get back to more of the video in a second.
Perhaps one day. I can't go around telling you all my secrets now, can I? You still haven't told me how you became so good at dueling.
Alright, so the game has dumped me at the bottom of Hogsmeade, which is fine. We'll still run from here. So here we are in 5 times frame gen. You can see we're getting less than we were with 6 times, and it is showing the 5 times preset. You have to override the 5 times in the NVIDIA app for sure to make sure it works. I wouldn't depend on the in-game settings right now. I would just use the NVIDIA app. That's the only way to make sure that it applies properly. Latency is the same. Latency doesn't change at all. But I will say the issues that I saw with the image quality are definitely more improved. This is what you would want to do. You would use 5x for sure. Yeah, this is better than 6 times for sure. There's a lot less of the ghosting and the awful shimmering. It's not completely gone, but this is playable. This is much better than what I was seeing before. And moving like this, there's definitely ghosting around the character, but it's not as bad. There's warping. Yeah, there's definitely warping. It's still not great. If you must max out your 240 hertz monitor, then you can totally play like this for sure. The 6X I think was genuinely nearing on the edge of not playable. It was hurting my eyes. This isn't as bad. It really just depends on, you know, your threshold and your tolerance for image quality, flickering, shimmering, ghosting, all of that stuff. Some people are really sensitive to that. That's why most people who even have an issue with frame gen in the least bit don't even want to turn it on. But 6 times in Hogwarts Legacy, that is a no go. Yeah, dynamic will be interesting, but there's still a hell of a lot of ghosting. And even looking ahead right there, the tree. Yeah, it's really, everything's extraordinarily soft. Again, we're at quality DLSS, so we're not even at native. If we were at native, maybe if I had a 5090, I think that might clear things up. maybe that would help. I would love to see a 5090 benchmark on this game with 6x to see if the 5090 can salvage 6x on this game. But I mean, we're getting 5090 FPS in quotations, you know. This is probably the performance you'd see on like, you know, 4x at DLAA. And we're at quality at 5 times. So you take what you can get, you know, you spend about what, $2,000-3,000 less on a graphics card, and you basically have to turn down the settings a little bit to get the same kind of performance. So the 5070 Ti still provides that amazing value that I bought it for. But the value that you're getting out of this, especially even when the 5070 Ti is well overpriced right now, yeah, this doesn't look good enough for a $1,000 GPU. Maybe if we play it native and don't do any upscaling, that could help us out a little bit. Hoping. So we're at TAA high. So native resolution. They probably won't be anywhere near that 240 mark that we're trying to hit. But let's see here. Yeah, there's quite a lot of stutters now. And look, our base frame rate is at 30 FPS. That's no good. Yeah, when your frame rate's at below 50, 45, 50, and you're throwing on 6 times frame gen, even 4 times frame gen, it just doesn't work. It just kind of falls apart. You're gonna get a bunch of stuttering and all kinds of, yeah, there's still flickering and whatnot. Native res, it doesn't improve it. I almost want to say it makes the image quality a little bit worse, kind of back to what 6 times was. Alright, since we're already at 5 times frame gen, let's try removing ray tracing. If we turn the ray tracing off, apply those. Alright, let's see. We may not have to restart. Let's see. Pretty sure it applied. Oh, it definitely applied. It definitely applied. Oh, man, it feels so much better already. Yeah, see how our base frame rate's at 46 now and not 30? This actually looks a lot better without ray tracing. I don't think this game needs ray tracing, so okay. I'll still say some of the shimmering's still there, but this is much better. And we're at a native picture. This is much better. And I can actually appreciate the higher frame rate now. The rasterized lighting doesn't worsen the experience. Maybe I have to go back to Hogwarts, the manor, to really see with all the lights in the indoor environment. I think in the outdoor environment, ray tracing, especially obviously in this game, isn't going to do too much for you. It's just a performance hit at this point. Yeah, it's already, look at this, it's already much better. I can feel it, I can see it. 5 times frame gen. There's still ghosting. You can see. I don't know if maybe I'll zoom in here if I can, but yeah, look at it. I can see the ghosting popping out of my character. Yeah, it's still not great. Better than with ray tracing though. Now we turned ray tracing off. Maybe we try quality DLSS again. Alright, now we're hitting our 240. The ghosting's not as bad. This isn't bad. I think this is it. We'll do one more run through Hogsmeade. I already like this so much better than anything we've done so far. between 5x, 6x, with ray tracing on, ray tracing off. So once again, this is quality DLSS. That's 1440p upscaled to 4K. No ray tracing. And we're hitting over 300 FPS. And the latency goes down to as low as the mid 30s. Alright, so clearly the way if you want to max out your 4K 240 Hz monitor, because I know everyone in the chat or in the comments has a 4K 240 Hz monitor, I'm sure. If you want to maximize that, then turn ray tracing off, obviously. And you can turn on frame gen times 5. Now, I still think that there's too much ghosting. There's just too much of the image quality that's lost from the frame generation for a lot of people. But I could play like this. I could absolutely play like this. And look, I'm just a man who likes options, okay? So if you can give me the option to get these, type of high frame rates, and if I don't mind a little bit of a lapse in image quality and upscaling and all that stuff, then that's me as a gamer, then hey, I'll take it. But I'll also understand if somebody wants actual real image quality with no artifacting, with no perceived glitches, because what we would have thought of that would have been a glitch. These would be glitches. This ghosting, the shimmering, all the blinking, we would have called those glitches back in the day, but nowadays we call it optimizing, right? I would never go to 6x with this game. At least maybe with some other combination of settings you can try 6x, but I just don't see the point. It doesn't make sense to me. In this title, 6x just seems overkill. 5x would be the absolute max you would need. We're already at over 250 frames a second. And the latency feels great, man. I mean, we're at 50, almost 60 FPS as a base. No wonder it feels good. Yeah, turn off that ray tracing, guys. No ray tracing in here. Alright, we're back and in Hogwarts Legacy, and we've got that dynamic frame gen on. I'm really excited to see what this does, or kind of scared to see what it is, because I don't know if it's going to be able to handle it very well. But on my settings on my NVIDIA app, I set the target frame rate to 240. So that's what the game is trying to hit with dynamic. So already we're looking at dynamic times 3 into dynamic times 4. And it kind of gives you an idea of what kind of frame rate you should be, or not frame rate, what kind of frame gen you should be using if in fact you want to use the fixed amount. I think the dynamic frame rate so far is going to be good for testing, and then you can just kind of just flip on which one you want in the NVIDIA app if you so desire. But as you can see, we're going between 3 and 4 right now. We're not even touching 5 right now. Yeah, I'm really glad I got to Hogsmeade, because it definitely goes through different facets of the environment. So you get foliage, you get trees, you get vegetation. So none of this is new per se. It's not 5 or 6 6x dynamic frame gen. It's not even going to the new frame gen options. But what this is with the dynamic option here, it basically is always in the background looking for the best optimal frame generation option. And I gotta say, moving between 3 and 4 is very smooth. If I didn't have the overlay on top, just paying attention to it, I wouldn't even know the difference. All right, so here's our stopping point here. Yeah, so we're at dynamic 4 here with all the foliage here. This is actually really good. This is why you've got to test so many different games, because in certain games, dynamic frame gen introduces so much stuttering. And this is an Unreal Engine 5 game, so I just assumed that this dynamic frame gen would just be awful to play at. Now, we're not in combat or anything, but this is an intensive area. And it's going between dynamic. It's holding at dynamic 4 right now. And look at the latency. The latency chart's holding up too.
Here I come.
I'm wondering if the common theme here is that latency is going to be good now with frame gen. The question is image quality. You know, the image quality is what breaks down. There is ghosting, but it's much more improved. Times 5 is much worse in motion. It's much worse. I think you have to think about this in two updates. You've got frame gen times 5 and times 6. So you've got additional modes that you can play around with to up your frame rate. You know, use at your own peril. But then you've got the dynamic setting, which allows you to, have the system kind of go up and down depending on the scene and what is needed by your graphics card to actually implement the frames that you need to play in that moment. So it's a pretty cheeky setting to have available. It's just another tool in the toolbox, really. I think that's what we have to think of frame gen like that. I'm really hoping that game developers don't develop around frame gen, and we've already seen stuff like that. But if it's just a tool in your toolbox that you're able to kind of pull out and utilize, I think it's a really good thing to use. Hopefully you don't always need to use it. You know, we want to be able to have native resolution. You know, if you got to pull out quality and performance every once in a while, and especially if you're at 4K, that is a very powerful tool. But then, now you got these secondary tools with, frame gen times 2, frame gen times 4. If you've got a 50 series graphic card, now frame gen times 5 and times 6, and now with dynamic, it's all just extra tools. And how many times am I going to say the word tool? Take a drink every time. Don't do that. But I gotta say, super impressed with the dynamic frame gen implementation. I really like this. I would play like this. Genuinely. This is quality DLSS. Let's give native res a try. See if we can get a little bit more image quality back with dynamic frame gen. Huh, it's looking like dynamic frame gen's not. It looks like frame gen's not on. Oh, I turned it off? Oh. Okay, so if you disable DLSS completely, okay, I've got it. There we go. Alright, that should, okay, there we go. Alright. Now we're at native, I believe. We should be at native now. Alright guys, I noticed that preset M was on, so clearly, okay, auto was on, okay. So that was actually DLSS performance. So let's just say, so if yeah, there we go, okay. Okay, there we go. Now we're at native, sorry about that. So that was performance previously, now we're at native. Now we're at native, and I know we're at native because now we're at dynamic 5. Alright, there's a little bit more ghosting. And ever so slightly noticing the input lag. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. But I'll say, I mean, this looks really good. It looks better than performance DLSS, I'll tell you that much. Okay, now we're at dynamic 6. And I see that ghosting. So when it was on auto and it was on performance... see, now we have a conundrum. When you're on performance DLSS, it was going between 3 and 4 dynamic frame gen. Now that we're on native, with no upscaling involved, we're going between 5 and 6. But the fixed 6 times frame gen is way worse than this dynamic. The shimmering's almost gone, really. There's some pop in. You know, pop in for me isn't that bad. Now, what you can notice, and I think you guys have probably noticed, look at the way that the grass kind of splinters when I'm running. There's that going on, and the kind of haloing or the ghosting of the captions. You'll notice that is still going on. But if you're just looking at the picture, looking at the model, looking at the character, turning, yeah, there's still a lot of ghosting and whatnot. But this is better than it was with Dynamic 6 at fixed. I think that was just a little bit too much. Setting this at 240, you know, telling the system, hey, you know, I want it to be at 240, and just kind of, you know, work around that frame rate. We don't need 280, 300, don't need all that. I would probably just throw on, if I wanted the highest frame rate possible with the best visuals, I'd probably just throw on quality or performance and then just let the dynamic thing do its work. Because what's going to happen is now you've got two roads to go through. You can choose to go with a better upscaler, but then with the better upscaling or no upscaling, you're going to be dealing with higher frame generation, which is going to impact your image quality anyway. Or you can go with performance DLSS, or you know what? We should try ultra performance. You go lower on the upscaling side, but then the dynamic frame gen will give you 3 to 4, you know, times frame gen. So I think it's going to go like this. This is my prediction. So if you have a game that doesn't have the best frame rate generation, best frame generation implementation like a Hogwarts Legacy, but it still looks really good at performance or even ultra performance, then you probably want to prioritize the upscaling and the resolution that you're actually playing at, and then secondarily going for the frame gen. So what that means is you want to utilize dynamic frame gen, get your image, your resolution to the highest possible with the best base frame rate you can get, and then you just throw on dynamic frame gen, and it'll do the job for you, and it won't overshoot the frame gen where it's going to nuke your image quality that you're trying really hard to maintain. So it's kind of a seesaw. All right, so we gave preset M a try. This is now preset L. This is the most advanced preset we have right now. So this is at ultra performance, dynamic, and again, it's at 3x. Yeah, there's definitely ghosting around the character for sure. I mean, the image looks really good, I will say, but there is ghosting. It's almost similar to what we just saw with native resolution and the 5 to 6x. So this is interesting. So it's actually pretty similar to native with the 5 to 6 times dynamic. But now we're basically just sitting at 3x frame gen. But then what I would probably do if I really want to play like this, I would take this information and just use frame gen times 3. Or I'd use frame gen times 2 and just kind of, you know, bring it down a bit and then, you know, still get good frames. But it gives you that information to let you know, hey, you know, if you want 240 and you like this preset of your DLSS or with your image quality, if you're happy with this, then it tells you, hey, use DLSS 3. Or at least use that as a baseline. Very interesting. But I think Ultra Performance overall just has a lot more ghosting, because what is it doing? It's upscaling a 720p image all the way up to 4K, and then it's also doing dynamic frame gen. So it's generating fake frames on top of the 720p image that it's upscaling to 4K. I think with this resolution, and again, it's going to vary too, because what if you're on a 1440p monitor? It's a little bit different. I think that for all intents and purposes, at least if the goal is to max out your monitor, which for me, it is 240. 240 hertz, 240 frames is what I need to max out my monitor. This is how I would probably play. No ray tracing. Again, this is no ray tracing, so you can't have ray tracing. Performance DLSS, preset M. You're getting really good image quality. The ghosting is at a minimum. You're hitting 240 FPS nearly. Dynamic, 3 times frame gen. Maybe occasionally it'll go to 4 times when it gets really hectic. 4 times isn't too terrible. It probably won't go to 5. And it doesn't stutter when it goes between, you know, one tier of frame gen. So that was a lot. That was a lot of talking. That was actually just one take. But there's a lot to take in from here. A lot of information. A lot of interesting stuff coming out from this test here. There's Dynamic 5, and that was a stutter. I did notice that there was a stutter there. Dynamic 5 popped in for a second. Me personally, that doesn't bother me too much if I know that 90% of the time we're going to be like this. 95% of the time it's going to be Dynamic 3, and then it's going to hop to Dynamic 4. But yeah, this is probably what I would do. Again, the ghosting and the blue and the you know, the artifacting doesn't go away. But performance DLSS just looks so damn good. Our FPS is at a solid 74 base. So that's why it looks good. And we're over 200 FPS with frame gen. Whenever you're over 200 FPS with frame gen, all the way up to 4 times frame gen, it's going to look pretty good. It's actually worth it once you're over 200 FPS with the frame gen. Alright guys, well that was quite the video. That's going to be quite a lot to edit. I'm really looking forward to doing it. Let's see. Yeah, I got nothing else here. So if you liked the video, please hit that subscribe button. We're going to be testing all sorts of games with this new dynamic frame gen implementation, 5 and 6 times frame gen. We're going to get to the bottom of what games work well with what. But yeah, if you like these videos, like I said, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.